Hi everybody and welcome to this Avid webinar, Let's Get Graphical, where we're going to share the latest news on Maestro Graphics. Thanks a lot for taking the time to join us today. My name's Craig Wilson. We're going to start off with some introductions. We're then going to give you a bit of an overview of Maestro Graphics. We're going to look at some of the new things that have happened in Maestro in the recent releases. And then we're going to have a live demonstration. And for that live demonstration, we're really going to show you the full end-to-end of Maestro Graphics, from Maestro Designer to Maestro News and workflows with MediaCentral Cloud UX as well. We'll also then finish off with a question and answer session. And for that question and answer session, we want you to submit your questions, and we'll show you how to do that in a second. So I'm joined today by a great panel of presenters. As I mentioned, my name's Craig Wilson. I'm the product evangelist for Media and Cloud here at Avid. With me today, we have Martin Appleton, who is the product manager for Maestro. We have Ola Koftun, who is a solutions specialist. And we're also joined for the Q&A section at the end by Amir Hochfeld, who is our director of product management as well. So great set of presenters. And they're very much ready to answer all of your questions. So if you're joining us on the Zoom session today, then I'm sure you're pretty familiar with how to submit questions on Zoom. Just use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and we'll do our best to answer those questions live in the course of the webinar itself. If you're joining on any of the Avid social channels, thanks a lot for taking the time to join us there as well, then please feel free to type in the comments in those various different platforms. And again, we'll get those questions and we'll do our best to answer them live in the course of the webinar itself. We'll be here for the next maybe 35, 40 minutes or so, taking you through all of the latest things regarding Maestro Graphics. Now, before I hand over to Martin, who's really going to delve into the detail of what we have that's new in Maestro Graphics, I want to share a little bit of a video to start with, just really to give you a picture of where we are today and some of the new things which have been introduced recently with Maestro. So bear with me 1 second and let's watch the video. Give your stories and channels the look they deserve with the new Maestro Graphics. From creation through to playout and control, Maestro is a powerful suite of graphics design and production tools tightly integrated into any workflow, from news to sports and channel branding. And now, it's not just creative flexibility which Maestro brings to your operation, but business flexibility too. Maestro is available as a software-only solution and through subscription. That means if you're new to Maestro, you start with a lower cost of entry through subscription, choosing your own hardware. Existing Maestro customers can upgrade with ease, as any current templates and designs simply work, and you're always on the latest version. Subscription is also the perfect way to prepare your graphics workflows for your journey to the cloud. Maestro integrates with any newsroom system, and with MediaCentral Cloud UX, journalists can add and preview their graphics right in their editing timeline. Use Graphics too in your craft editor of choice. Give your teams the tools to create eye-catching high-end graphics, animations, virtual 3D objects, video wall content and more. Gain the ultimate in flexibility with the new software-only and subscription offers. This is Maestro Graphics, now even more flexible, simpler and accessible. Great, so hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview of what's new with Maestro Graphics. But for the moment, I'll hand over to Martin, who can really delve into the details. So Martin, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Craig, and thank you everyone for attending this webinar today. So I'd like to go over a little bit about what the next generation of Maestro Graphics suite of applications is before we go into some of the individual applications inside. So this new release that we have coming up in 2 days from now extends our support for off-the-shelf hardware platforms. In addition to the existing Maestro Engine platforms that we offer, we can now support hardware from Dell and from probably start of January next year, also from HP. And this gives broadcasters a full suite of tools to meet all of their graphics needs, whether this is for news, sports, election coverage, branding, or other special events. Now, the new Windows-based platforms that we're supporting are fully backwards compatible with all of the content that's been authored in earlier versions of the Maestro Graphics suite. And we continue to be tightly integrated to the rest of the Avid ecosystem, including the MediaCentral Cloud UX platform. Now, the new release that we have can be used not only with the off-the-shelf hardware, but also with the existing Maestro Engine hardware. So both platforms can coexist in the same environment. And this sets everyone up to be future-proof for new advances in broadcast graphics and broadcast engineering, and also introduces a subscription-based software solution. Thank you, Craig. Next slide. So this is a complete end-to-end workflow for graphics. And with the integration with MediaCentral, this goes beyond just having an artist prepare content that goes to air. This also becomes an environment where graphic designers can store, share, and retrieve graphics within MediaCentral, where journalists can access the templates and use these for stories that are being put together for the nightly news, or to enrich and publish content in social media platforms. Operators can access and deploy all of the graphics content easily in their production, and this can be used not only for traditional on-air graphics, but also for video wall and augmented reality content. So you can have a seamless look to all of the content in your broadcast environment. So let's talk a little bit about the new platform that we have. This is based on Dell workstations, and this gives us a Windows-based platform that's secure and easily managed as part of the IT infrastructure. So this becomes another IT managed piece of equipment in the broadcast rack, rather than something proprietary. All of our software is being deployed on hardware that we're certifying. So we're looking for the best platforms that give you the best performance for your money, and certify our software on there so that you can have consistent rendering results when you deploy this software on the same platforms. And of course, this hardware is future ready, so you can be updated with new features over time. Now, some of the options for video I/O that we have are for HD, 3G, and UHD as SDI formats. And starting from early 2023, we'll have IP support as well, with 25G output capable boards. So let's look a little bit at some of the applications that are working in this workflow. So we'll start with Maestro Designer. This is where we do all of the authoring for the on-air graphics. Maestro Designer is a great application because not only can you build everything natively inside Designer, you can also bring in content from external applications such as Adobe Photoshop, Adobe After Effects, Autodesk 3D Studio Max, etc. So this can bring in rich 2D and 3D content that can be incorporated with other real-time elements and used on air. Now, Maestro Designer can also access MediaCentral from within the application, giving you access to all of the indexed video clips and images that are stored in your asset management system, which allows a very efficient sharing and repurposing of the production assets. And templates can also be stored in there, allowing them to be easily moved between different sites, retaining all of the links to the content that's been built. Next slide, please. Now, once this content has been created inside Maestro Designer, it can be used in different editorial places. So for instance, this can be opened up inside MediaCentral and added to a story, whether it's in iNews or in another NRCS system. Journalists can also push this to social media by publishing through MediaCentral Publisher, send it directly to playback, burn the graphics into video, or keep the graphics separate from the video and have non-burn graphics, which will be updated when the video is taken to air in a production system. Next slide, please. Now, when we're taking our content to air, we're using Maestro News. This is receiving the rundowns from MediaCentral with all of the information inside the templates populated by the journalists. It's also able to query multiple data sources, whether this is an Excel, ODBC source, or XML feed, and bring this data into the graphics and take them to air. the operator has a full preview of the graphics, including video clips and other content that's inside. So they can see everything that's coming to air before the presenters do. This is a rundown-oriented application. It's ideal for on-air graphics, but also for video walls and other augmented reality studio graphics. So you can have a single workstation controlling everything within the studio. Next slide, please. Also, we have Maestro Live. This is our more non-linear application, which we use particularly for sports and sometimes for elections. This is an action-based environment where all of the content can be played non-linearly. So when you need the fast turnaround for a sports event, you can call graphics to air very quickly and easily from a customizable user interface. And again, this can be used to control any kind of graphic in the studio environment. Next slide, please, Craig. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ola Kofton, who's going to give you a demonstration of the workflow in action. Take it away, please, Ola.
Thank you, Martin. Hello, everybody. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Hopefully you can see it.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Ola, and I'm gonna talk to you about the basic overview of Avid Maestro graphics workflow. With Avid, Maestro is easy to create graphics for any kind of production, either sport or graphic or news or live or post-production environments. We will see how tightly Maestro is integrated within the Avid environment and how we use the graphics on every step on the production chain. So basically, I will focus on the creation, on the preparation for the on-air and the playout itself, wearing different hats as the designer or journalist, editor, and then the operator. So let's start from the design. This is the core application. We see Maestro Designer, where we can create an authoring. Well, it's an authoring tool that gives us the power to create 2D, 3D animated, data-driven, augmented, or virtual productions. So what we see here is this window in the middle where we see the preview of the graphics. We can play it here, how it behaves, and all this will be visible from here. On the left side, we can see the scene tree. This is basically where we create the hierarchy of the scene, connecting the items one to another. In the bottom, we see the settings window. So each and every asset inside the scene will have its own properties. And of course, here in the bottom below, we see the assets, the primitives, and all which is coming built in within the application to help us to create the graphics. We can mix 2D and 3D elements into a single scene, so it really helps us to create more stunning graphics for any kind of production. Starting from a single primitives that are coming built in within the application, and creating more complex animation like skeleton animations or more. But what if I already have my graphics created and just want to bring it to my on-air graphics? As Martin mentioned, we support different kind of design animation like 3D Max, Cinema 4D, Adobe Photoshop, After Effects, Illustrator. In my case, I would like to use the Adobe After Effects example. So I have here my scene, my project in After Effects that I created. It's just this nice loverford. I can see that I have two compositions here, and the loverford itself, which contains the text elements and the images, camera position, and so on. So I just imported this to my Maestro Designer application. Let me show you how it looks like. Okay, here it's loaded. We can already see the representation of the scene, how it looks like without touching it, just an import. The animation is here. I can see that my composition is here, and I can see that my lower third with all the components is actually here. And from now on, I can start connecting different values from other applications like data connections, or I can go and create a new texture, for example. So I would like use an NDI input string. So if I would be stringing something from an example media composer or from one of my output, I can get this NDI input into my graphics on air directly. Okay, so let's say we created this scene. This is the base for all our graphics from now on. Then as a designer, I'm going and creating the template. For this, I'm using the page editor application. I won't stop and talk about this too much, but this in this stage, we do create the playout logic, we connect data sources, and we define the layers that will be changeable later on. Well, the template, once it's created, it becomes available in all our plugins and modules. And to represent it, I will go to MediaCentral CloudX. And now the designer job is basically done. So I'm gonna be wearing the hat of a journalist. So for those of you who are not familiar with CloudX, MediaCentral CloudX is a platform that provides to customers basically all the tools in a single user interface to get the job done. Either it's news or any kind of other production, you have all the tools. So here on the left side, we have the systems, which are the backend systems, production and management, asset management. I have the newsroom management hand here and the Maestro News. So as a journalist, I'm gonna be creating my story, and I'm gonna be working with the templates. So I'm just browsing for the templates, and I'm opening my Rundown application. So on the top, we have the native and partners application to provide different kind of modules. Like in this case, I'm using the iNews. Okay, so here I have my iNews. I'm working on the news story. Here I have the body, the story expanded, and I'm gonna be using my template that we just created. So by double click, the template is expanded for editing, and I'm gonna start creating the editing the data. Something like this. Another advantage of, as I said, is the collaboration and all the tools that I need. So in this case, I would like to use an image which is stored in my asset management system. So in this, in my case, the asset management is called archive, and I just take in my image and assign it to the template. So you can see the preview is updated on the fly. And if I want to see the whole animated preview, I absolutely can do it. So I'm just generating this preview, and I can be sure that everything I prepared is exactly what I wanted. So coming back to my story, I'm opening the Rundown, and I'm adding the asset, to the story. Okay, this is done. Now I would like to show you another example. So I'm gonna be changing the Rundown, and here is another story which I'm working on, and this story has a sequence assigned to it. So I'm opening the sequence. It already contains some graphics into it, so I just need to basically finish the editing. Expand timeline. Okay, so I'm gonna be using a different template this time, and just for better representation, I'm gonna switch the layout. Okay, So this template was planned so I can modify its layout easily, and here I can change the colors of the graphics. So you can see that by moving the slide bars, I'm actually changing the colors, and it is reflected in the preview window. Another thing that I can do is change the virtual slot. In Maestro, we have in Maestro Graphics we have 255 virtual layers. Well, we could literally play 255 live graphics on air. Never happened. I never saw. And of course, defining the channel. So everything is done. I'm happy with the graphics, and I'm gonna add it to the timeline. So you can see that on editing to timeline, I created a new graphic layer, which is called PG, which is my virtual layer name. And now I can start adjusting the graphics on top of the timeline. And of course, I have the graphical representation of the graphic itself. Well, while it's generating the graphics, I'm gonna save the rundown. Perfect, the graphic is here. And from here, normally I would be doing send to playback. So on send to playback, we have a choice to burn the graphics with the video in a final movie. So it can be later on used for social media, for example, or it can be left empty, I mean, without burning the graphic, and then used for live playout, either by automation as command, for example, or manual playout. Okay, but what if I'm not an iNews user? So in this case, with our HTML5 plugin, which support ENPS, Octopus, ANOVA, Open Media, and others, we can provide similar workflow to these types of NRCS. Similar to MediaCentral Cloud UX concept, it is the communication is based on the bus services, which is responsible for communication with the rendering platform and data and data source communication. Similar to MediaCentral Cloud UX, in HTML5 we support single image preview and animated preview. And of course, the access to asset management system and the search for metadata is supported as well. Well, another plugin that I would like to mention is an NLE plugin, which I'm not showing at the moment, but basically as an editor, I have an access to the templates that I used for on-air, live on-air graphics. They appear as a video effect in my NLE plugin, similar to what we see here in the screen. So we have the editing window, all the templates, configuration, and playout behavior is accessible and can be modified from the NLE plugin. And similar to what we just saw in Cloud UX, we can send to playback from the NLE itself, either by burning graphics, again, using it later for wherever we need it, or leaving it clean for live production, either by automation or manual. So I think we saw the creation of the graphics and the preparation for the playout. So at this point, I would go back to Maestro News Controller, and I would like to talk about the playout part. So this is Maestro News Controller. This is rundown-based application for on-air control graphic. It supports multiple rundowns, and so let me a little bit explain your user interface. So here in the middle, we see the preview. Here we will be reviewing or previewing the assets before playing them on air. Here on the left side, we have the rundown area. So all the rundowns appearing into Maestro News will appear here. In my case, I have a manual rundown that I created myself. So I can trigger the assets manually from the rundown. It can be also rundowns coming from NRCS systems or, for example, automation rundown. So yeah, here is the browser window. This is my access to the database of the templates. And of course, if I choose any template, it appears here for editing. And on the right side here, I have the macros window. So with the macro script, I can trigger to modify different parameters in the templates, for example, or clean the outputs, or even trigger a specific template in or out. Those macro scripts are also supported, can be triggered from automation devices. Well, so we spoke about this. Let me allow me to open a rundown from the iNews. So you can see that it's expanded on the in additional news side by side, but I can just move it to the main view. As I said, we can have multiple rundowns open at the same time and just either by side layout, triggering the items. Operator doesn't have to follow the playlist, just trigger whatever he needs. Okay, well, Maestro News is a powerful application, is a powerful controller. There is an endless list of features we can talk about, but I would like to highlight several. So for example, now I got an iNews rundown, and it's a long playlist with some items are empty, some items are full. I have an option to hide the empty stories, and this way I can filter, so I have the list that I need to focus only. Another feature that I would like to talk about is, for example, the channel filtering. So in my case, I have only 2 channels, but I might have many more. So I can check, select it, see only specific channel. In this case, I want to see the graphic channel. So once I apply this, it shows me everything which assigned to graphics channel. Okay, so saying this, and adding to multiple rundowns, as we can control multiple rundowns. This can be rundowns coming from automation, for example. This can be rundowns that control the graphics into my studio, for example, in my Powerwall, or on the other video screens in the studio. And at the same time, I can control the newsroom rundown from the same user interface. Well, again, it's a lot to talk about. I think in general, we covered it well all over. Thank you. Craig, back to you.
That's good, Ola. Thanks very much for sharing that, and thanks for what is a very, very quick run through of lots and lots of different applications there. So we've got obviously Maestro Designer. There's way, way more to it than you were able to show us in the short period there. Obviously in MediaCentral Cloud UX, giving people access to those templates. And I think one of the things about it is about that kind of efficiency that you can have in the workflow, where you can create those templates that journalists can use, and that can also free up the design team, to spend time on those, real creative graphics that make the difference for the show. So thanks a lot for taking us through that, and thanks a lot to Martin for taking us through the presentation as well. So Martin, if you want to pop your camera back on again, we'll just go through some questions, because we've had some questions that have come in the course of the demonstration itself. So thanks a lot. If you sent a question in, if you haven't, please feel free, as I mentioned, if you're in the Zoom, to put it in the Q&A chat. If you're on social, just type your comments in there as well. So Martin, one of the questions that came up was around the hardware platform. So you mentioned that we're moving to a software-only solution now with supported hardware. Are there plans to support other types of hardware than the ones you kind of outlined earlier? Because we've also had a question that's come in about OB vans, and we'll maybe get on to that as well. So maybe talk a little bit about the supported platforms.
So aside from our existing hardware that we offer, the Maestro Engine platform, We're now supporting 2 workstations from Dell, the 7920, which is a 2-rack unit system. And this is going to be ideal for UHD production or productions for video walls, where you have high-end requirements for lots of inputs and outputs or lots of high-resolution signals. We've also certified a Dell 3930. This is a 1-rack unit workstation, which is ideal for like standard CG, lower thirds, over the shoulders, things like this. It's a nice compact unit, and this has very short depth, so it's also good for OB vans. I'll get to the sports question that came in a moment. We're also just getting towards the end of certifying a platform from HP. Earlier this year, they launched their Z-Central 4R, which is a really fantastic 1U system. And that's going to sit somewhere between the 2 Dells in terms of the performance. And as more platforms become available, we're going to certify these and allow customers to work with those if they wish. So we want to try and cover other manufacturers so that people can choose whether it's somebody they already have a contract with or they work with a partner that works with this manufacturer to get the right platform for their needs. One of the questions that came in was also about using Designer, typically in a sports production out in a truck. So Designer is not used for the control of the graphics during the production. This is just used for authoring, but it can sit side by side on the same system as Maestro News or Maestro Live during the production. So you could use this in parallel to build content while you're also taking the production to air. So we don't really have an all-in-one application that does everything. We have an authoring application that's tuned towards authoring, and then control applications that suit the types of workflow that broadcasters have. Some need a linear workflow of a rundown, which is offered more by Maestro News. If you're in a sports environment where you have a non-linear production, we have Maestro Live to cover you there. So we really tuned the UIs to match the style of production that you have.
Yeah, that's great, Martin, and thanks for answering that question as well. Obviously, a lot of customers who might be joining us just now may be existing Maestro customers, and they might be saying, well, what does this mean for my existing setup? So what can you say about that? If I've already got Maestro, what's new for me, and what can I do with the new release?
So the new release that comes out not only supports the off-the-shelf hardware, it continues to support the Maestro Engine hardware that we have. So if you want to expand, you could add the new off-the-shelf hardware as well and be using the same software as you use for your Maestro Engine platform. So it's not that one is replacing the other, they can work side by side. If you want to transition completely to the off-the-shelf hardware, all of the content that you've made in your existing environment will just move smoothly over to the new hardware, and you won't notice any difference. It's the same rendering engine we have running on both platforms. So ultimately, it should be a seamless transition for anyone that's wanting to move over. But of course, we'll continue to support the software and hardware in the existing environment for few years to come anyway.
Yeah, so it really is about providing that flexibility, I guess, for customers to choose, what it is that they want to do. And something that you mentioned in the presentation, Martin, was about coming support for IP. I wonder if you could expand a little bit about what's going to be involved with that.
So IP has slowly been gaining traction within the broadcast industry. We supported IP on our Maestro Engine platform, although we didn't see as much customer interest in the early days as we thought there might be. But now this is starting to come back. Customers coming to us and saying, we're on SDI now. We're going to stay SDI for 1 or 2 years, but we need hardware that's going to be IP ready when we're ready to make that change, because it's not just an investment in a couple of boxes that will produce a signal, it's the whole of the broadcast infrastructure. So start of next year, we're going to be supporting the NVIDIA Bluefield line of IP cards. So this will be off-the-shelf cards that you can buy directly from NVIDIA, and this will give us 25G IP support. So we're going to be UHD over IP ready. And there'll be support in there for the SMPTE 2110 standards and also for 2022-7. So you have your failover for the signals as well. And this means that you can start with SDI now, or even IP if you're ready. But if you've started with SDI, it's a simple replacement of the cards from the SDI card to the Bluefield card, and you're ready to go with IP. It shouldn't be changes to the software, aside from perhaps like an update. Otherwise, it's like really straightforward, smooth workflow, same environment, and very easy to adapt to when you're ready to.
Yeah, it's really interesting seeing, IP growing, because we see it all over in the production environment with, MediaCentral Stream, which can take in compressed IP streams and play out IP streams. And with the forthcoming MediaCentral release, we're going to have MediaCentral Acquire, which is allowing, users to control lots of ingest devices. So I think we'll see much more about IP capable workflows as we move through. Something else that's kind of related to IP as well, Martin, and some people might be considering this as well, is about the move to the cloud. We've already qualified certain workflows within the Avid production environment of working in the cloud. So what does that mean for Maestro?
So part of this move to the off-the-shelf hardware is also the long-term setup for deploying our graphics environment within the cloud. So we wanted, first of all, to move everything over to a standard IT platform that we can see that everything is running, that it's producing the results that broadcasters depend upon. And then we can start the process of certifying all of our software components for cloud workflows as well. And this is starting later this month with the MediaCentral News in the Cloud initiative. And this is going to introduce the Maestro Newsroom plugins that we have to this workflow as well. So it will be fully certified and part of MediaCentral's deployment in the cloud. Later, we'll be certifying the other applications. In fact, many of the components are already prepared for VM deployment in cloud environments. But in the future, we want to Dockerize some of these to make deployment even easier. So we're getting there. It's a steady process, but we're making this transition as customers are making it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Without doubt, it's a journey that I think many people are on at the moment. Ola, maybe if I could come to you for a couple of quick questions. You showed in the demonstration of some of the work that can be done in Maestro Designer, but I also wondered about how important it is that we have that integration with the likes of After Effects and Photoshop and other authoring tools as well, and how simple and smooth it is to actually bring those designs in. Can maybe talk a little bit about what's involved in that workflow?
Well, I believe that Martin would give it more contained. Well, it's basically import and modify. We don't modify too much, like we doing the basic changes for the scene, and it's ready to play and plug.
But also Designer itself is very powerful in terms of what it can do.
Correct. We will always suggest to use design to design and from scratch, of course, in MediaCentral for the performance thought. But of course, we're not restricting our customers.
And Martha, maybe coming back to you, one of the things which all obviously showed there was the integration with MediaCentral. And I wonder how, kind of central, if you like, to the overall workflow, because I guess one of the conversations we have with customers these days is they want to work in the most efficient way possible. And is that one of the key themes really around what we can do with Maestro?
Yes, I think so. I'll split it into a couple of the applications. So for Maestro Designer, it's been very key for us that you can reuse as much content as you have it from other environments already. As Ola already touched on, there's the Photoshop support, so you can bring in PSDs with support for the layers, the fonts, blending modes, etc., and use those natively within Maestro Designer. So you could even prepare like a lower third without animation, with all of the text elements inside it, bring it into Designer, add the animation to it, create what we call exports. So these are data that can be changed in the template in Maestro News, and you're good to go. For After Effects, we can bring in simple After Effects compositions with the layer compositions in there, the text and animations and the simple shapes, and these can be used as is in Designer or added to with other elements from Maestro Designer as well. So it's very much like Maestro Designer is a composing tool where you have native elements inside that you can build much of the content with, but you can also reuse other assets from your work environment in there. Now, because of the integration with MediaCentral, this gives us the access to the asset management. So we can access all of the images and clips that are stored in there directly and use those within the scenes that we're creating and the graphics that we're using on air. We can also take all of the designer content and store this inside MediaCentral Asset Management. So you can add metadata tags to everything, make it searchable for recall later. Or if you're working with like a hub and spoke model, you can have the main hub that's preparing the graphics store everything in MediaCentral, and then the spokes will pull this out when needed, and they'll have the content ready to go. When you get over to Maestro News and Maestro Live, they also have the same integrations with MediaCentral that allow them to access the images and the clips directly from within MediaCentral without having to go to another location to get everything. So it's really this, MediaCentral really gives us a seamless access to all of the content within the studio so that everyone in the production workflow can work with this for the graphics.
Yeah, it's really interesting and really a kind of efficient way of doing it. So another question that's come in, Martin, is will 5G be an integral part of using IP going forward? I'm not sure if that's, you certainly don't need to have 5G for IP kind of workflows.
So for the IP workflow that we're talking about here, we're talking about the full uncompressed video that we're transferring over like SDI over IP technology. So these are signals with like considerable amount of bandwidth requirements. Like a UHD signal is 12G. That's a lot of data that's been put through there. So this is why we need the 25G interfaces. 5G, like on my phone, is obviously ideal for streaming. I can see a time when we're using sources from cell phones as live sources inside video environment, inside the broadcast environment. Already, NewTek offer this with the NDI tool for phones that allows you to broadcast NDI directly and use this as a source. So I think 5G is an enabler in this environment.
Yep, that's great. And also we have recently had workflows with SRT as well as part of our overall workflows within the portfolio. So Martin and Ola, we've no other questions at the moment, so that's been great. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and all of the information. So for me, I'm just going to wrap up things here with the last few slides. So really just to summarize, what we've looked at today. So, Maestro Graphics it's an end-to-end ecosystem, as we've shown, in the demonstration, going all the way from the sort of creation and design of graphics through to editorial, that ability to preview graphics live, add them into your timeline, see them in context, and then transfer or burn them in if you want to a playout device, and then obviously play out, using Maestro News. Now available as a software-based solution and available through subscription as well. It really does have the tightest native integration with the MediaCentral platform, the bigger Avid ecosystem, but it's open, so very much available for non-Avid newsroom systems as well, with very, very similar workflows to what we've shown you in the course of the demonstration today. And although we're always upgrading, we're always introducing new features and functionalities and capability, very important that everything that we're doing is compatible with content that's been authored in previous versions and previous generations of Maestro as well. And obviously looking forward now to this transition to off-the-shelf hardware, moving towards IP capabilities or greater IP capabilities as we go through into next year. And that again as an enabler to facilitate people who want to take their workflows and move them to the cloud. If you want to find out any more information, then please go to the Avid website, go to avid.com/maestro, and there you can get all of the information about our broadcast graphics, the solutions that's available, the kind of workflows that we can support there as well. But for now, from me, from Ola, and from Martin, and the rest of the Avid team, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and enjoy the rest of your day, and good.